What is he doing? Like, is he wearing welding goggles looking at the sun? Hi, yeah, these are actually welding goggles, and I am looking at the sun. Yes, I am trying to count sunspots on the sun, and these goggles don't really help in that. But wait, why am I counting sunspots? The answer may surprise you. Sunspots may cause revolutions. Hmm. But wait, that's ridiculous. That's astrology, right? Maybe, but there might be some truth to it. You see, there was a person named James William James Sidis, and he published a very interesting article in, I think, the Journal of Abnormal Psychology or something like that. And it has actually some interesting data, so let's check it out. If I could actually see the spots on the sun, this is what it would look like today. You notice that there are spots on the sun with what we call sunspots, or in general star spots, because other stars also have them. And how do we know that? I'll probably make another video about it. But the number of stars on the sun, which is characterized by a number called the Wolf number, it doesn't remain the same. Sometimes when you look at the sun, there are no spots on it, and you come back 5.5 years later, there are lots of spots on it, and then you come back 5.5 years later, again there are no spots on it. So what is up with that? Now this is known as the solar cycle. Near the solar minimum, the spots on the sun, they're almost non-existent, and near the solar maximum you have lots of spots on the sun, and then it goes back to solar minimum, and there is a quite predictable period here, which is 11.6 years. It's periodic and very, like, the period is very I mean, it's 11.6 years, you can calculate it. It's not like the El Nino or El Nina cycle. I mean, it's not even a cycle. These are patterns in weather changes uh, on the on Earth. I mean, the surface of the Earth, but they don't have a fixed period of. You can only predict with a certain probability when it's gonna happen next. But this is a quite a predictable solar phenomena, and it's a very mysterious phenomena because we don't really understand why it happens. All we know that there is an 11.6 year cycle in the solar activity. It's not just spots. You see more flares, lot more flares, like 50 100 times more flares near the solar maximum as compared to the solar minimum. So magnetic field flips per solar cycle. So, and we don't really understand why it happens at all. It's very mysterious. So what does this have to do, this solar cycle have to do with revolutions? For that, I want you to meet William James Sidis. He was brilliant. He was a child prodigy, extremely gifted mathematician and a linguist. He was a hyper polyglot. He could speak 25 languages, and I mean, he graduated with a PhD around the age of 17. So um, he wrote a couple of very interesting books, and can't find a lot of his books because he used pseudonyms, because he believed in anonymous contributions to science. One of his books, well, I'm not gonna talk about that. I'm reading that. Maybe I'll actually I will make a video about it later. But I opened one of his articles, and believe it or not, it's published in a journal of abnormal psychology. Let's not go there. But it was called the remark on the occurrence of revolutions, and I thought it was about political economy and sociology, but it is actually about sunspots. What he does is he notices a certain pattern in the solar maximum and minimum, and rebellions and revolts and revolutions. So he says, check this out. We had a minimum in 1811. We had a revolt in Tyrol, which I think is northern Italy, and revolt in Mexico, and you see that near every minimum you have some sort of a revolt happening somewhere. Now this is Indian mutiny. We call it the Indian War of Independence, like first Indian War of Independence, and yeah, we do confirm that it happened in 1857. And you have all of these revolutions and revolts happening near the solar minimum. But then he says, wait, like, check this out. Near the solar maximums, you have also revolutions, like these are older revolutions, so I know very little about them. I know about the Paris Commune, which was the first socialist slash communist revolution. It wasn't the Bolshevik revolution, that was the first one. And in 1905 there was the first attempt at Bolshevik, Russian revolution, which was crushed, but they tried their best. But it only succeeded in 1917, the Russian revolution. And we also had once in Ireland and Mexico, um liberation movements and revolutions and revolts around the same time. And again the revolution in Germany, uh, which eradicated the Kaiserreich, or the um, empire. And there was a power struggle, and the social democrats backstabbed the communists, and they created the terrible Weimar Republic that gave rise to Nazi Germany. But let me not go there. But yeah, so we had this near the maximum. But wait a minute, you would say that, so this means it's completely meaningless. You have um, revolts happening near the minimums, you have revolts happening near the maximums. So that means that solar activity, sunspots have no relation to revolutions, because clearly more spots also mean revolution and less spots also mean revolution. He says, yes, I know, but did you look at the countries in a little bit detail? I will uh, say the names of the countries in the first list and the second list, and see if you can notice some pattern in the countries here. So we have Italy, Mexico, Spain, South America, Cuba, India, Japan, and Portugal, China, and Balkans, which is the ex area of the area of the ex Yugoslavia. So Serbia, Montenegro, um, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Slovenia, and Croatia, etc. And then that's the first one: China, Cuba, Mexico, India, etc. And the other one is France, Poland, Belgium, Russia, Austria, Prussia, uh, uh, again France and Germany, etc. So France, Poland, Russia, Austria, and the other one is Mexico, India, uh, Portugal, and Italy, etc. So if you didn't notice it, even I didn't notice it. The first bunch are warmer countries, and the second bunch are colder countries. So at the minimum, when the solar activity is minimum, since there are less spots, the sun is slightly brighter. And in hotter countries, it makes conditions worse. You have droughts, and you have problems because of droughts and poor agriculture. And in colder countries, near the maximum, when there are more spots on the sun, so it's a little bit dimmer, the climate gets worse, and you have again problems with agriculture, and in general you're colder and hungrier and angrier. So he says that obviously just temperature differences and climates do not cannot contribute to entire revolutions. There has to be the movement growing, and these are complex historical processes and not triggered. They might only be triggered by the problems in the uh, economic or agriculture. When you're hungrier, you're angrier. That's the essence. Or even if you're colder or warmer, these slight changes in climates can push you over the edge, given that you have already been walked to the edge in the past by the oppressive regimes that you are living in. Lenin said that there are years when nothing happens, and there are weeks when years happen. And now this document was published in 1918. So now what we would do is to examine what happened after 1918, because that's where the document ends. So this is a website. Let me zoom up. Hold on. And these are the solar cycles that happened since 1918, which is around here, which is around the minimum, right? So here, no, it was a maximum. Sorry, colder countries. So as a rule of thumb, remember that colder countries means that the revolt would be near the maximum, and for warmer countries, the revolt would be near the minimum. Well, That's the hypothesis. That's shouldn't talk about it as if it's the truth. So we have the uh, type like the Chinese Revolution in 1911 around here, and that seems to have happened in the minimum. So China has a varied climate. So that was the revolution where they established the Republic of China, and they snatched. I mean, they got rid of the warlords and the old empire, and they had the Republic of China that was led by Sun Yat-sen. And after that, there was the Communist Revolution. We'll come to that in a minute. So here, near this maximum, we had the Russian revolutions, etc. Near this minimum, nothing really happened. And let's just skip to where things really happened. So 1939 is when the World War II started, but that's not really a revolt. That was a war of aggression. I mean, Germany did not revolt against Poland when they started the war. But in 1944, here near the minimum, the tide of the war changed. But again, not revolution. So let me not comment that. Around this period, 1947, 1949, that's the maximum period. We have the Chinese Revolution succeeding and India getting independence. So Chinese Revolution happened near this maximum, and that should kind of bother us because earlier it was the minimum and now it's the maximum. But again, China has quite a difference in latitudes, and we should really investigate uh, the agricultural production around both of these periods, and whether it's the southern section or the northern part of China, if there was any drought or it's something like that. So near the minimum of 1952-53, we have the Cuban Revolution starting. It was victorious in 1959, which is around the maximum here, but it started near the minimum, and that makes sense. And because earlier also Cuba had a revolution in near a minimum. Cuba is a warmer country. And then we have after Cuba, we have in 1965 around here around the minimum, we have Mao launching the cultural revolution, and Indians peasants also rose up against the oppressors in Naxalbari. That wasn't a successful revolution. Well, I mean, it gained a lot of ground initially, but that happened near a minimum. And India is definitely not a cold. Wait, yeah, warm countries, yes, warm countries have revolts around the minimum. So yes, that does make sense. And near the next minimum, 1975, we have Vietnam, North Vietnam winning against the South Vietnam, destroying. I mean, getting rid of that. South Vietnam, and fall of Saigon and reunification of Vietnam, and also the revolution in Cambodia. And then in 1980s, nothing major. I mean, the Afghanistan's revolution happened somewhere in the 80s. And again, now this is very important. At the maximum of 1990, a couple of years preceding, starting in 1989, do you know what happened? All the Eastern European republics which were under the wing of Soviet Union, the allied with the Soviet Union, the governments were allied. The people rose up and they overthrew the governments, and they got liberal democracies because they believed that that would give them a better standard of living. So one by one, they just got rid of their communist governments, and that was around this maximum. And that does make sense because that is indeed those are indeed colder countries, and they rose up against the Soviet Union around this time. And Yugoslavia also fell, even though it's considered a warmer country in our analysis. But that was because the Soviet Union fell, and that caused the fall of a lot of socialist and communist projects around the world, socialist projects. And then, well, around this maximum, we had the September 11 attacks, but that wasn't a revolt, so I wouldn't count it. And around okay, I mean, that's it for the revolutions. We had an Arab Spring in 2012, but that's near a maximum, which wouldn't make sense. So I don't know, maybe it was not it was instigated and not organic. Who knows? Or maybe our theory is not that great. So this is kind of near astrology, where you're saying that the spots, but we are not saying that the number of spots on the sun. We are, I mean, if we are saying this at all, what William Sidis is saying, that it the okay. So I'll go back to here and I'll show you that there is a correlation between temperatures and, I mean, global average climate, weather, global temperatures, average temperatures, and the solar cycle, and it's like 0.18 kelvins, plus or minus 0.08 kelvin. I can't find it, but I'm pretty sure it's that. Yeah, it's here. So that's some marginal difference, very little difference in temperatures, but maybe that's enough to push, because you see there is, I just showed you the previous revolutions, and the revolutions in China and in India and Cuba and in Eastern Europe, I mean, revolt, not, it wasn't a revolution, it was a revolt, happened exactly as predicted by Sidis, uh, near the maximum for the colder countries and near the minimum for the warmer countries, with the exception being China, because China has a warmer climate, and I should have investigated more, but that would have required a lot of study of history, and I have so many video ideas, so there is only as much time I can give. So what do you think about this idea? uh, I mean, of course you should investigate and then write a comment. If you have investigated something, then okay, thank you for attending. This isn't a talk.